county. And I served a term as a county commissioner, and then recently I served 3 or 4 terms as a county commissioner. So my seat is one of those from the 3rd district, but I'm very interested in receiving any comments from folks that are concerned about the way the charter responds to citizens' concerns. And I appreciate the fact you all came out tonight.
My name is Ken Hayes. I represent, I'm Commissioner for District 1. I've been a long-time resident, married to a 3rd-generation Sequim woman. Almost done raising a Scotch-Irish hooligan son. And he appears to be doing well too, thank goodness. He actually went out and looked for jobs today, and I think he might have found one, so I was very excited about that. Have had an architecture practice based in Sequim for 27 years. And I'm running because I'm interested in ensuring a good local government. I think it's the key to community prosperity, and that's my reason.
And we'll go over there to Sue.
Good evening, I'm Sue Ford. I'm representing District 1. Thank you for your votes. I've been in business here for about 15 years. We're residents of 24 years in Clallam County. I served on the last Home Rule Charter Commission, and one of the issues that I was able to bring forward was protection of the individual from eminent domain for the purpose of reselling to a private company. So we've got protection from that, whereas other counties don't. I believe in Article 1, Section 1 of our state constitution, which reads, all political power is inherent in the people, and government derives their just powers from the consent of the governed, and are established to protect and maintain individual rights. And that's what our Home Rule Charter does for us in this county. We're one of now 7 counties in this state. So my goal is to listen to you, hear what your concerns are, and represent you well on this Charter Commission. Thank you.
My name is Maggie Roth. Pardon me. Today is kind of a tough day. My husband has been gone 1 year today. I'm serving on the charter rule because I believe that the people in our county need to be represented, and that's what I have chosen to do. I'm from District 2. I ran for county commissioner a couple of years ago, was not successful, but I did have 5 opponents, and I was one of 2 at the end, so I felt pretty good for a first time running. I'm just glad to be serving our people in the county. If there's any changes that need to be made, I hope that this board will do a good job for you, and I believe we will do the best that we can for this county.
Hi, can everybody hear me? My name is Cheryl Williams. I'm 56 years old, and I have been a resident of Clallam County for 47 of those years. My husband and I have been together for 30 years, and we joined our children to combine 5 children, and now we have 12 grandchildren between us. And I'm an employee of Clallam County. I'm working in Health and Human Services for 4 years, and I appreciate your vote. I actually am District 3. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for coming tonight. My name is Glenn Wiggins from Port Angeles. I've lived there 55 years, raised all 3 of our kids there, and now we're having grandkids also. Been married to my wife for 60 years now, so he still puts up with me. So I was involved with the city government for 8 years, 2 as mayor, and I'm delighted that you all came. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Celinda Bartos. I'm an attorney by trade. I've lived in Clallam County for 20 years, successfully raised and launched my son here. I've worked for the county for 11 years now. The first 7 years I was in DCD, and the last 4 years I have served as your elected county treasurer. And as such, I just put a stack of my timber and tax report there that I issue today for your information. I'll be emailing it to the commissioners tomorrow. I think most of you are aware I've had my issues with the county administrator, and I will be talking about that at some point. But tonight I'm here to listen to you, and I'm looking forward to hearing what your concerns are. Thank you.
And we have, okay. we have two commissioners. Can you hear me? Is that on? Okay. We have two commissioners that could not come tonight. One is Rod Fleck, who is the county attorney from Forks, and the other is Barb Christensen, who is a vice chair of the committee here. Sue Ford is the other vice chair, and she is out of town. I'm fortunate enough to be the chair, and my name is Norma Turner. I've been in Clallam County since 1970, and I've served on all but one of the charter review commissions. That must mean I have a flat learning curve. The one that I missed is because we were fortunately doing a year's volunteer medical work in Tanzania, which was amazing. So I've been involved in a variety of things locally and have done some things at the international level, and I'm a retired public health nurse by trade. So thank you for listening to our introductions.
And we're also missing Steve Burke.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear from him. And Steve Burke is the executive director of the Port Angeles pool, and I didn't know he wasn't coming. Okay, maybe he'll join us later. Okay, did I cover us all? Yes, Ted?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Candace Pratt, Mayor of Sequim, who's in the audience here.
Oh, glad to see you. Want to stand up, Candace? We see who you are? Okay. Nice. I see Mike over in the corner, Jim McIntyre, your county commissioner. Did I miss anybody else? Okay, thank you. So we have a very simple agenda tonight, and basically it's to listen to all of you. First of all, we have correspondence, so you have, is it handed out?
I forwarded 3 emails from Ed Bowen, 2 on February 26th and 1 today. And I forwarded one that came through Ted Miller from Lori Dubois as well. And then you had one that was handed to you this evening, which apparently was an anonymous writer.
Okay, so the ones we have in front of us is the anonymous one. You want a microphone, Trish?
Sure, right there. I can share.
Okay, all right. So now we'll move into the public hearing. And the rules we have set for the public hearing is that you hopefully have signed up. We will take those who have signed up first, but then if you want to comment and you haven't signed up, feel free, when we finish the list, to stand up and comment. You'll have 3 minutes to give your comments, and then the commission will spend up to 3 minutes just asking you questions. To understand, the questions are simply for clarification and help us to understand your position. Martha, you want to put your name down here? Martha, you want your name on here?
Yes.
All right, I'll put you down.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And so the questions are not to ask you to defend your position. That is not our job. Our job is simply to listen, and then if there's something we don't quite understand, is to get some clarification. So, and you have a right to say you don't really want to answer that question. That would be fine too. It's just an effort to make, as I say, to have this become a community dialogue rather than a one-way. So if I have my glasses on, we see that Candace Pratt is the first one.
You know how this works.
Not usually on that side of the podium. Right?
No, but I'm a lot more comfortable being here than I would have been a few years ago. Thank you all for serving. You may consider it at the lowest level, but I think it's very important. So tonight I'm speaking to you not as mayor, but as private citizen Candace Pratt. And I support having 5 commissioners on the board of Clallam County, 1 from each district and 2 at large. The reasons: it's too easy to violate the Open Meetings Act with a phone call, in a meeting, a chance meeting in the hall. And I'll give you an example. 2 commissioners currently serve on the Clallam Transit Board, 2 city councilors from Port Angeles and from Sequim. If there's an agenda issue that may also be of interest to the county, commissioners express their thoughts as is expected. The consequence of that legitimate interaction on one board violates the Open Meetings Act for the Board of Clallam County because two have heard each other's opinions outside of the commissioners' meeting. The third commissioner did not hear it. The public attending the commissioners' meeting did not hear it. Should they walk to their cars together, deep in conversation, there is the perception of violation of the Open Meetings Act. Now that's one issue that I wanted to speak to you. Do you have a single issue?
There's no rules. You have 3 minutes to raise as many issues as you want.
Okay, next one is I support an appointed DCD. The Clallam County has the only elected DCD of nearly 6,700 DCDs in the nation. Where is the evidence that we are right and every other city and county are wrong? I suggest that the county is being adversely affected. The job description for DCD in the county is the same as for DCD in Sequim, and I dare say for every DCD in the nation. The person filling the position is hired and paid because she possesses the education and experience and qualifications to do the job as outlined. The DCD is expected to be responsible to the city manager, the county administrator. Somebody is supposed to hold the DCD accountable to do the job as described and to manage the department appropriately. I suggest our county's governance is dysfunctional in that respect. Commissioner McIntyre has said that there's a significant body of law that says one elected official may not tell another elected official what to do. The county is a geographical entity. Cities and counties are to be recognized as important partners within the county. Everyone living within the geographical boundary pays taxes that support the Clallam County government. DCD is not to answer to special interests, but to plan the long-term development of county. A professional DCD is compelled to the consideration of future generations with the development and significant updates of a comprehensive plan. The county comprehensive plan is supposed to be in harmony with those of the cities within the county, as it used to be before we started electing the DCD. Thank you very much.
All of us are fussing around up here, guys. I forgot to set the timer.
Okay.
Figure out how to make it work, but I'm sure you're within your 3 minutes. Okay. So you have any additional thought?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
So questions from the commission. Nola?
Yes, I noted that you were, had notes in front of you. Is that something that you can share with us so that when we deliberate, we'll have that information?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
How do you want me to get it to you?
If you just give it to me. For the record, for everyone else, if you have written comments when you're finished with them, if you hand them to Trish, it makes the note-taking and the minute keeping much easier. So, Ted, you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to comment on the proposal for 5 commissioners. It certainly seems like a good idea for a number of reasons you mentioned and others as well that weren't mentioned. One advantage of having 5 commissioners would be that it'd be easier to represent the county. You could have one on the west end, one in the Sequim area, 2 in Port Angeles, one between Port Angeles and Sequim. And the reason that this can be important is rather than having 3 plus 2 at large, is that each area would actually be able to be represented. Right now, Forks is represented by Bill Beach, but normally District 3 is represented by somebody from Port Angeles because that's where the people are. And it just seems to me that rather than having 2 at-large districts, having 5 individual districts might be a better way to go. And I was wondering what your opinion is on that.
I haven't developed an opinion on that. I rather like the one I presented. But I'm open to options. I really think the important thing is having 5.
Glenn?
I was just curious if you know of any place in the state where they've had 3 commissioners where the opens meeting has been violated by having 3 commissioners and a meeting of 2. Has that ever happened that you are aware of?
No. I would say that it's the sort of thing that is not necessarily on the record. It's just so easy to have happen.
I see.
And if you're not conscious of it, you just go about your daily life and, business as usual, and don't think to sit at the commissioners' meeting and make the announcement that Commissioner and I met and we did talk about this, and this is what was said.
So it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, yes.
Any other questions? Okay, Ron, and then Mike, and then I think our 3 minutes is up too.
Yeah, what would be the cost of having 2 more commissioners, and where might those funds come for the county?
It would probably be the same that you're paying the 3 plus 2 more, okay? 2/3, I don't know. Don't ask me to do math.
No, I understand.
But I think it's a red herring to say we can't afford it. In my humble opinion, I think it is, it's important to good governance.
Mike?
Thanks. Usually, part of that discussion is, with the 3 commissioners, 5 commissioners, 8 commissioners, would they be part-time or full-time? So if you had 20,000 a year for 5, you can figure out the budget comes out a wash at some point. But also, could we take maybe just 15 seconds to have the mayor mention when you're going to open your brand new building, and congratulations, you had a very creative financing that building.
Okay, I'll put my mayor's hat on then. And yes, we're very excited about it. It's scheduled to be done April 25th. Public walkthrough is May 1st, which coincides with our First Friday Art Walk from 4 to 6. And there will be tours, both floors. And then the staff and everybody will be moving in throughout May. And our ribbon cutting is tentatively set for June 13th. And our first city council meeting will be June 8th in the new council chambers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next one is Marcia, and I think we have our timer worked out here.
Yes, and I'm ruthless. So.
But we won't start the timer until you're in front of the mic.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be very succinct. I'm glad that I'm following Candace because she covered the same areas I wanted to cover, and she did it way better than I would have. So I'll let somebody else speak, but it's Marcia Rady if you need the last name.
So before you step down, are you saying that you endorse 5 commissioners and appointment of the DCD?
Absolutely.
All right.
Any questions?
Any questions from the audience? Questions? We didn't even get our timer started. Okay, Nola, you have a question for Marcia?
There were more than one issue that was brought up by Candace. Are you primarily supporting just the 5 commissioner, or were you supporting all of her agendas?
Both. Okay, and next is John Allen Kirschbaum.
Good evening. I don't have notes here. I'm going to talk extemporaneously, so to speak. My concern is with the Office of County Administrator in 2 veins. First, I think the county administrator should be retained. I do think that there is the question that has been raised in campaign issues and along the way of openness, and I address openness in the terms of accurate reporting. I have had a similar background to the current Jim Jones. I was with the Chicago Board of Education for 23 years. I was certified as a chief school business official. I was a member of the equivalent of the Washington State Association of School Business Officials. I was also a member of the Government Finance Officers Association in Chicago, Illinois. The importance of the administrator, I feel, is very important to consider the office and not individual. The office is needed. There's no question about that. 3 full-time, as alluded to in previous, I think 3 full-time commissioners have the auspices of thinking that maybe the administrator should be an elected official. That way, if you have a disparity, and I'm not saying that there's dishonesty or any thing against the present commissioners, but if you have a disparity and the administrator was appointed by at least 2 out of 3 people, and they continue to want to support that administrator, there's nothing that will force them to recall that person. Under an elected official, the administrator being elected, he would have be subject to the same recall provisions as other county officials. I noticed I was inadvertently passed the anonymous thing where there was a support. I don't want to go into that. The elective, I don't think that expenses for salaries would be neutral as that individual suggested. I think the 3 commissioners earn their due today. I do think that there might have to be a necessary adjustment for an elected administrator, primarily because the current administrator, if he chose to accept an elected position, would have his employment terminated. So there would be considerations of that pay, but you would have to adjust the pay in relation to other county administrators that are elected in other comparable counties.
Thank you. So if you want to stay there, we'll see if there are questions. Well, my questions would be, we have both partisan and non-partisan elected officials in the courthouse. If you elected a county administrator, would they be partisan or non-partisan?
According to the charter, the elected county administrator would be non-partisan. It says all elected, other than the commissioners themselves, and that would be that would have to be changed if somebody thought that should be a partisan thing. The thing with the partisan is that the political parties could have a nominating aspect if that elected official became vacant. Or not became vacant, but if the office became vacant, they would have an opportunity to nominate that. Other questions?
Thank you.
Yep.
So next is Darlene Chantel.
Darlene Chantel, 901 Metzger Road, Sequim. I have some handouts. Should I give them all to Trish?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm bringing to you a land use issue that I would like you to send out to the public for a vote on whether or not to ban the spreading of sewage sludge on county lands. Sewage sludge are the solids after wastewater treatment plant treatments. Only these plants were not built to treat much of what ends up in the plants, which can be anywhere from 60 to 80,000 contaminants. Approved by EPA, these can be sold as compost or fertilizer if they are claimed to have essential elements, which means 8 to 9 metals that farmers see as essential to grow their crops, and a few pathogens that have to be monitored for. Yet there are, as I said, 60 to 80,000 contaminants that can be in these plants. If the treated sewage sludge were not used for the compost or fertilizers, it would be considered hazardous waste, and it is by EPA considered hazardous waste unless it is claimed to have these few essential metal elements for farming. Land spreading is terribly unsafe, and people have literally died. different countries from just breathing the small particulates. It's unsafe for humans, it's unsafe for children who play in our soils, or it's unsafe for pregnant women, people that have compromised situations. It's unsafe for pets and wildlife that dig in the soil. And it's unsafe for our water bodies as it percolates down into groundwater and runs off with with the storm water back into the open waters, which has terrible effects on the marine life, and it has been shown by scientists that some of these contaminants get into their systems, and these are some of the marine animals that are sold for food, human consumption. So again, I would ask you to send a question to the public to vote on whether to ban the spreading of sewage sludge on county lands. And the communities would have 5 years to find something else to do with these. So 5 years is plenty of time to find something else to do with these toxic contaminants. Questions?
Other questions? Okay, Linda and then Glenn.
Where does the sewage sludge come from now? I mean, are you referring to particular sewage sludge?
Well, they can come from plants like in Sequim or in the city of Port Angeles or Jefferson County, but they can be sold in bags and come from anywhere in the country.
Are you referring to the city of Port Angeles? I just want to clarify, but the city of Port Angeles sells its, what do you call it, morning, the golds? The compost?
Yes. You can go up and buy by the tons, or you can buy a bag.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, that would be one of the companies that sells it. It's garden clothing, and it has a big sunflower on it. But even the city of Port Angeles has finally put on their advertising cards that they send out to the public that this cannot be used on gardens that are considered certified organic. So they have made that statement.
Glenn?
No, that's good.
Other questions? Connie and then Ted.
So these contaminants you're referring to, are they heavy metals?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, maybe pharmaceuticals, are you including that
They
in the
are.
realm too? And so different chemical combinations too.
Yes. That's hospital waste, pharmaceuticals, personal care products, laundry detergents, pesticides, vaccines, PCBs, PAHs, anything that goes down a drain sent there from us or industrial firms that go to wastewater treatment plants.
Thank you. And is there a particular place, have you looked at the charter to see where it might fit in?
I have not looked at the specific section, but I can do that.
For one, I'm not real sure that it has a home in the charter itself, but it might be an initiative that might go before, that could go before the public or even ask the county commissioners to pass an ordinance.
True. I think it does fit, but I will check that. I think it was brought up in Spokane and it's been brought up in other states. But definitely there's many ways. Thank you, Connie.
Ted, you get to ask our final question.
Okay, well, basically Connie just asked or addressed the same point I was going to. I'm not sure this is a charter review commission issue. It certainly is a county commissioner issue, and it could be brought up to them. And also, it could be an initiative by the public, either to the commissioners or just to change it to enact a county ordinance.
I thought that it could be a land use issue and that the charter deals with the land use issues. But I will review that.
I'm not sure that's the kind of land use issue it can deal with, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you want to hand your things in to Trish, then she'll get the next one. Thank you. next on this is Pat and Robbie.
I'm speaking to the same issues that Candace so beautifully explained. I think when somebody gets elected to a public office, they may have a hidden agenda, or even worse, they don't have the proper qualifications. So I think that the office of DCD should always be vested, vetted, and appointed, and following standard procedures. And I also think that I like the reasoning that Candace went through about the number of commissioners we have. I kind of thought, my thinking was that if we had three districts, we have 3 commissioners as representing each of those different districts. And my question would be, if we have, 5 commissioners, do we have to separate into 5 equal districts, population-wise? And I think it would be nice in a way to have more than 3, but 6 is an even number, so that doesn't work. And 9 is huge, cumbersome amount. So I feel as though we should probably stay with 3 unless we can find a really good way to equalize the number of 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you leave the podium, do you have questions? Okay, so Linda has a question.
The idea has been brought up to do 2 at-large commissioners, so there would still be the 3 commissioner districts and then 2 commissioners at large that would be elected from the entire county. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it depends on how their political offices, and it depends on how they would choose the 2, and would they be comparable to our 3 major, or would they be equal to? I think there's a lot that has to go into deciding to make that fair.
Anyone else have a question? Thank you. Lynn? Mensch. That's why I didn't use your last name. I wasn't sure how to pronounce it. Thank you.
I answered almost anything.
Okay.
I'm Lynn Mensch. I live at Blue Mountain Road. I'm again talking about Article 4 and the election of some of the county positions. From a personal standpoint, I have a master's degree in planning. I spent 2 years learning all the skills and obtaining the tools necessary to be a planner. I've worked for 2 cities, a state, a federal government, and a Native American tribe as a planner, so I know a bit about it. The role of a planner, like the DCD director, is to envision a future and figure out what needs to be done to achieve that future. The person has to anticipate problems and solutions, both in the short term and the long term. When the county made the decision to elect the DCD director, I believe it was largely from a dissatisfaction with building regulations. An equivalent action would be to decide to make the county engineer be elected because he didn't fill potholes fast enough. Luckily, the incumbent we have right now is an architect with planning experience, but that's just because we happen to have a qualified person who agreed to the election. I urge you to turn this back to a professional position with the normal criteria for relevant qualifications and experience. I wasn't prepared to talk about anything else, but I can say I feel just as strongly that the county administrator should certainly not be an elected person. It makes a very unwieldy relationship with the 3 commissioners, and we need professional people to run this county. The elected guys do a great job, but we need professionals to help them.
Thank you. Are there questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm trying, and Paula Barnes is next speaker.
more of the same. My name is Paula Barnes. I live on Lost Mountain Lane near Spoon. My husband and I have been residents of Clallam County for 9 years. I've spent almost 20 years of my career as a department head in 2 cities and a county, where department directors work closely together as an executive management team. So I've had a lot of exposure to community development departments, their issues and their challenges. There's a reason that other jurisdictions don't have an elected DCD, and I'm here to ask you to recommend that the county charter be amended to return that position to an appointed rather than elected status. There are 4 main reasons for this. First, the position should not be political. Having an elected DCD places the person squarely in a political environment, and this means that he or she is subject to persuasion by big money interests. And it means for a considerable period of time, every 4 years, the DCD is distracted from doing the actual work by having to raise money and campaign for the job. Secondly, we want to be able to hire the best person for the job. There are no educational or experience requirements for an elected DCD. An elected DCD may not have the knowledge, the skills, the abilities for land use planning, budgeting, fiscal management, human resources management, community relations, all important qualifications sought in department heads. A local DCD election completely precludes recruiting a trained professional with valuable experience from another jurisdiction. Third, the DCD should be accountable to the Board of Commissioners. An elected DCD may not be aligned with the vision of the board. An appointed DCD would be expected to be a member of the county team with goals and objectives that support those of the county's leaders. An elected one means the county's chief land use official may well be working at cross purposes with the board. That's a prescription for confusion, paralysis, or both. And lastly, the person in this position should be subject to the county's personnel rules. An elected community development director is not subject to the personnel policies that govern other appointed employees of Clallam County. His or her job performance can't be evaluated as it can be for appointed department heads. When performance or ethical issues arise, large or small, there's no process for dealing with them appropriately, short of an expensive and divisive recall election. So for these reasons, I urge you to recommend returning this position to appointed status. And thank you for considering these comments, and I have written copies for you.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Now we have Michael Matheson.
I'm going to change the rules here a little bit, ask questions, so ask our question. And I'm not even sure I'm at the right place, the right venue to do this, so please let me know. I'd like to know if there's anything we can do in this county to give incentives, similar to agricultural incentives in taxes, that would be used to promote clean, renewable energy production here at home. Can anybody tell me about that?
So what we'd like to hear is if you want that to happen.
Yes, I certainly do.
Okay, what you would want it to look like.
Well, that would be why I'm here to find out what that should look like. I really don't know. This is just a very beginning seed for me, and I'd like to find out what, if anything, I could do to promote this idea. So I think it's something that could be done for a minimal cost and would add a whole nother layer of production to our economy here. We could produce our own homegrown energy right here. Not enough to take all the cars off the road, certainly, but at least so we're not totally dependent on Bonneville for every watt we get here. So we'd have at least something, if something happens as a backup, we'd have some homegrown electricity production right here. Does that answer the question?
And do you have some idea of the forms of alternative energy?
Well, it could be a variety of forms. It could be micro hydro, which I'm particularly interested in. It could be wind. It could be solar. Any of those things. And I don't know what the parameters would be and how much would have to be produced to be qualified for a tax break. I don't even know. What is the limit on agricultural production? The minimum it has to be qualified. I don't know. That's why I'm here to find out. Can anybody help me with any of these questions? Or what do you think of it?
Mike?
So I'm not an expert here. Basically, the two wholesalers, City Light gets their power from BPA primarily, and PUD. So I say they're the ones we as citizens should lobby. You know, I've done that in the past for a couple of new renewables. And then, good or bad topic, but the biomass generator at the mill could be one someday to enter for.
I hadn't thought of that, yeah, that's right.
Considered renewables, so it's a different source. And any of those, generally, a local renewable source saves at least the 7% on line loss from Grand Coulee Dam over here, besides just having a local source. So, you know, you see a bigger build out with wind, offshore wind turbines, with the two big solar plants coming online, equivalent of the big coal plant in California. So there's a movement, there are incentives.
Yeah.
I'm just not familiar locally.
Right, that's what I was trying to see if they could get some local incentives to promote this sort of thing right here.
And there was a time.
They don't think your mic is on.
Yeah, there was not.
Okay, because Tricia's not getting you on the recording. Okay.
So there, I would say City Light, Port Angeles, and PUD out in the unincorporated area would probably be the place to go. And there were times, maybe you remember, when there were some small incentives for things like conservation and other things, but not for renewables.
Right.
They used to actually put on a course, build your own solar generator and take it home in the afternoon. Now, they did that with a grant program through BPA, and possibly they could do that again.
Okay, yeah, anything that would help people get into renewables around here, I think would be a great advantage to the community. And PUD does have a program, the net metering program, where you can plug in your production to PUD, feed it into their system, and they'll reimburse you at the end of the year. But any other incentives that would help people get over the hump of installing these systems, because they're not cheap to do. And it would be a real boon to the community if we had at least some local production here in case something really bad does happen. We don't know. And as you say, the loss, the transmission from Bonneville to here is what, 7% you said? Yeah, so that would eliminate at least some of that anyway. Okay, any other help that anybody can give me?
Well, and you just touched upon what I was going to suggest, and that is the local PUD, because they are tasked with having a certain percentage of their electricity, or let's say power, come from alternative sources. So I know that they're looking for green things, so I would really think that that would be the level that should be worked at. And
okay, yeah, PUD does do some of that, but I don't think it's really being pursued very assiduously. I think any other incentives we could add to sweeten the pot a little bit for people that are trying to do this would be of great help.
Am I correct in assuming when you talk about tax incentives that you'd be talking about a reduction on property taxes?
Yes, and isn't that how it's done for agricultural use right now?
So that would be an issue that you would bring before the county commissioners.
Right.
And they could do an ordinance or
Right,
whatever.
right.
I'm just wondering whether this is a purview of this charter.
That's why I'm here too. I don't know.
I don't believe so.
It may not fit within what we're doing, but on the other hand, we do two things. We create language we put on the ballot. We also discuss issues and make recommendations to the county commissioners for their action on other topics. So it may fit the latter.
All right. Well, anything you can do to support this cause, I think, would be a really good thing for the community. And that's about all I have to say. If anybody has any more questions for me, I'm open. Thank you all very much.
Okay, and next is Ken Wiersma.
Good evening, folks. My name is Ken Wiersma. I live on Overson Road in the county, on this end of District 1. I want to thank you all for your participation in this Charter Review Commission. It was my honor to serve on it the last time it was around. And it was an enlightening, not thoroughly enjoyable operation, but I think we did get some good things done. Anyway, I would like to just comment. I read in the papers and so forth that there's been some discussion about increasing the number of elections that we have for tax issues, for increasing the frequency with which this body would meet. And I would ask you to be very conscious of the fact that elections cost money. They are an expensive proposition every time that you decide to have one, especially if you're having special ones for special events. And, for special issues, or say, tax changes and that type of thing. They are expensive, and you need to consider that. And also, in the frequency of the Charter Review Commission operation. It previously was 5 years, and that threw it at different periods so that it didn't come in a cyclical operation with regular elections, so that it caused special elections to occur. And when you pass things in this, or an issue that you put on the ballot through this charter review process becomes on the ballot and gets passed, it takes a while to get it implemented. Within 3 or 4 years, and then you're up and you have Charter Review Commission coming around again. So you're essentially planting things and pulling up the plant by the roots to check it every few weeks. That's kind of the analogy, is you don't give the changes that are implemented by a charter review or by new laws and regulations the opportunity to be able to be integrated and mature in government over a period of time. So I encourage you to stay with at least 8 years. I advocated for 10 or 12 years to be a sequence between charter review commissions. You also do not breed the constituency in the charter review process to have repetitive people kind of make a career every 5 years or so of being charter review commissioners and getting into the mixes of governmental operation. So I think there are plenty of provisions within the charter as it currently reads for emergency or issues that need to be reviewed to be brought up and acted on if necessary by the initiative process, if that would occur between the time that the Charter Review Commission would meet. I also support the election of the DCD. I think that's imperative. I think many of the issues have been brought up here. But the other thing is, I don't believe that you ought to create within government within the county government, another small constituency that is building up and raising money to be able to function. So that's basically the thoughts that I have in that area, and I'll yield the floor.
So could you clarify your position on the DCD? It sounded like you wanted to continue electing the DCD.
No, I think that the DCD should be an appointed position with specific qualifications set forth and administered as a county employee.
Thank you. Other questions? Connie? And then Ron.
You're suggesting term limits for charter commissioners. Do you have a number?
Well, I think that this is a valuable body for the county to impanel periodically, but I think that there ought to be the opportunity, and if you keep the period stretched out at 8 to 10 years or so, I think 8 years probably is a workable thing. And we set this specifically in the last Charter Review Commission so that it would occur at the same time of the off presidential elections.
I understand that, but I thought you were suggesting term limits.
No, I'm just saying that if you put it at every, say at every 5 years, you have some people that are just repetitively serving on the thing, or going out and running a thing. And I don't think that's a profession that you want to create. The point is, I think that you need to get new thoughts and new people, and have enough curiosity in the election of this commission so that it has the opportunity to bring new ideas and new people into the process to review the government, and not have the same people repetitively serve at shorter periods of time.
So you're just suggesting one term then?
Well, I don't mind 2 terms. I mean, it's an elected office, and I don't think, I don't believe in term limits. I think term limits are determined by elections.
Okay.
Ron?
Yeah, well, I think you clarified some of it. You support an appointed DCD.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. I want to clarify this for myself. It looks like on 11/5/2002 is when it was voted by the people to have the DCD director elected. And then it went out again in
was it 2007?
11/6/2007. And it was again by the people, the citizens, to continue as an elected office.
Yes, that's true. But in that period of time, you had almost a year to wait until you had the election occur. By the time that individual was in office, it had not even fulfilled his first term before you had the Charter Review Commission coming up again. That's my point, is you don't have enough time to have the office really mature.
Yeah, right. I'm not arguing.
No, I'm not trying to argue with you either. I'm just trying to point out, to be sure you understand my point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Roger Fight.
I'm Roger Fight. I live up on Palo Alto, about 3 miles from here. I want to also make the case for an appointed DCD. Most of the arguments have been made, but a couple of things. One big advantage is the ability to have specific requirements and experience for the job, which I think is valuable for someone that is carrying out that type of job. Secondly, being a county appointed employee allows the ethics rules of the county to apply to that person. I think we had an example where the morale of that office deteriorated sadly, and waiting for an election to create the problem, to solve the problem, was simply waiting too long. And with an appointed DCD, that problem could have been addressed sooner with less damage to the morale of that office. The other thing I would suggest is to consider making the county prosecutor a nonpartisan elected official. I think most people agree that the job of the county prosecutor should be carried out in a nonpartisan way. And so it makes sense that it be a nonpartisan election. And in the course of elections that are partisan, the candidate is going to get attached to the party that they're running under their label. And I think it's just the elected official can be less beholden to a party if it is a nonpartisan position. And one thing I would point out is then, in the case of filling a vacancy within a term, the current arrangement of having the party of the previous holder of the office provide the list of candidates from which the selection must be made, that process would be different and again would have less attachment of the office holder to a particular party.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Oh, okay. All right. So, Ron, I see you're
Yeah,
done.
again, not expressing any opinions on your positions. Are you aware of any prosecuting attorneys that are elected on a nonpartisan basis in the state of Washington?
As far as I know, there are none in the state of Washington.
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know if there's a statutory or some other type of prohibition against that. I would certainly think that the commission should put that to our to the prosecuting attorney, Mr. Nichols, and get a definitive legal opinion as to whether that can be done. That's just a suggestion.
Well, the historical piece is that when the charter changed to the nonpartisan for treasurer, etc., at that time, our legal advice from the prosecutor's office was that you cannot change the prosecutor's office to a nonpartisan. In the intervening years, there are there's more than one legal opinion on whether or not you can have that office be nonpartisan. So
Okay, yeah, I was.
it is sort of like what Mr. Wiersma was saying. During the intervening years, you get a variety.
Wouldn't the ruling opinion on that come from someplace other than our local prosecutor's office, like the state attorney general?
Well, yeah, perhaps that would be a better place to put it. Yeah. And I don't differ with you there.
So, Nola, do you have any?
I don't have a chapter and verse on this, but I understood that the reason we could not do that was because that was mandated on the state level, and on a county level, we couldn't override it. But I don't have a chapter and verse, so I don't know if that's factual.
There is a state law, but the state law does not specifically say it has to be a partisan position. There's different language in there, but it does not, what I've read. But anyway, it's right, we would have to have somebody else investigate that for us. So Ted, I'm gonna call on you in a second because I keep forgetting to look to my left. Is there anybody over here who has a question? Okay, Ted.
I've looked into this and I've gotten an AWC opinion which says that the charter review in the county has no power to change duties, responsibilities, salary, terms, or anything else. We can require that the ballot be made nonpartisan. We're limited to just that amount, so we can do that. And I agree, I think an Attorney General's opinion might be appropriate.
Excuse me, Ted, what is AWC?
Association of Washington Cities.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you. And next is Susan Schottheffer. Oh, close enough. Okay.
Good evening.
Yes, right.
214 Alderby Drive, Port Angeles. I have two proposals tonight for you. First, I believe the majority of our county's residents would favor an amendment to prohibit local legislative authorities from using county collected taxes to promote bonds and levies in issues campaigns. Such misuse of tax dollars occurs when local legislative authorities promote their ballot propositions by sending promotional material to voters in the mail. This practice constitutes particularly unjust treatment of local taxpayers. An amendment such as this would prevent taxpayers from being forced to pay for and thus promote bonds and levies, which are tax increases they oppose and will vote against. Washington law appears to clearly prohibit this practice and continue, so I was hoping if we had something on a local level that the local authorities would be more conscious of it. And I think this might fit in, this proposal might fit under Article 7 or 8, but I'm not sure. Secondly, to guard citizens against private property violations and privacy violations, and to reinforce our U.S. Constitution's Fourth Amendment, I propose an amendment to prohibit all local government surveillance of people and private property without a search warrant. Such an ordinance would have prevented the Port Angeles City Council's potential violation of individuals' privacy and property with the costly smart meter fiasco. State constitutions reinforce much of our U.S. Constitution. I'd like the county amendment to reinforce our U.S. Constitution. Just this January, state legislators introduced a bill to protect from increasing violations of private property. Theirs was particularly applicable to trespassing. Part of this, HB 1375 for the state legislature reads, the legislature further finds that this unnecessary erosion of the right of privacy creates dangerous tensions between the people of the state and their government and jeopardizes the orderly resolution of issues. The legislature intends, with certain limited and necessary exceptions, that all persons, whether government employees or private persons, be made subject to the same restrictions with regard to entering upon the property of another. It is the intent of the legislature to eliminate special immunities for prosecution for trespass, whether those immunities have been legislatively granted or to the government or to private persons or entities. And I think this proposal may work in with Article 12, where we have an eminent domain protection there. And then a couple weeks ago, I proposed a voters pamphlet, and I just wanted to let you know that Pierce County does insert the voters pamphlet into the ballot when they send out ballots.
Questions? Did I get the number right? House Bill 1735?
1375.
Oh, I got that one mixed up. 1375, and is that proposed or passed?
I looked at, I'm not sure where it is. There was a hearing, and you can look at the hearing.
Okay, so it's just proposed.
Yeah, and I had it in my notes, but my printer wasn't printing color, so it doesn't stand out, but I have the actually the URL link. But I can mail these in too.
Thank you. Connie?
Thank you very much for all the research and everything that you've done. It helps make our job easier. I have a question on the using tax money for bonds and levies. Do you have a suggestion, like perhaps a nonprofit being formed by an agency who wants to? I'm looking for a way for some entity to raise money to put bonds and levies before the public. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure what you're suggesting, or asking, but
let's say,
actually,
for instance, a school district wants to put out, or let's say fire district. Fire district wants a levy for something, but they can't use taxpayer money to do that. Then how would they raise the funds to do that?
they have their political action committees. That's the job of the political action committee, to support the bond. But it doesn't always work that way, because tax money is used when the districts, the legislative authorities send out their own promotional material. So that, in a sense, a voters pamphlet would take care of that as far as a mailing, and then it could be the political action committees could work as they do. But then the voters pamphlet that way would have the arguments for and against, and then the legislative authority wouldn't have to be sending out their own. That would be the job, the task of the political action committee.
Dan?
It's my understanding that local government is already prohibited from promoting bonds, levies, initiatives, and they're allowed to hold one public hearing for information. One informational meeting is all they're allowed to do. And so I'm curious, do you feel like there's been violations of that by the county?
Yes, it is.
Can you give me an example?
They mailed them out. Yes, comes in the mail.
They mailed
I
what
have
out?
one in my house. Yes.
They mailed what out? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me, they mailed what out?
A 4-page promotion. It doesn't say directly, please vote for this. It says why you need to vote for this. We need this for all these reasons. And yeah, it is prohibited, but it happens anyway. So if we did it at a local level, maybe it'd be more conscious of it. That's what I'm doing.
Okay, so, is anybody over here with a question? So our commission time has run out, so we'll do one more question.
Well, I just needed to make a correction from the last speaker. I said it was an AWC opinion. It's an MSRC opinion, which is an organization that represents both counties and cities, not AWC.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And if you have your comments, you want to submit them to Trish, distribute them. Okay, Sue Erzin.
My name is Sue Erzin, and I live on Covey Run Lane in Sequim. As a former Charter Review Commissioner, I want to thank each of you for running and serving on the commission, and I wish you wisdom in your deliberations. I also have a couple thoughts about the difference between hiring and electing county officials. When officials are hired, they are chosen after an interview process on the basis of their qualifications and how they fit with the job description and how they would work with staff. They submit references from their past positions, and when an official is hired, they have to fulfill performance standards and employment expectations, and they go through scheduled reviews of their job. A hired official can be fired, and if they violate the terms of their contract or if they do not fulfill their job. On the other hand, an elected official has to run a public campaign like you did, but they probably spend more money and had a chance to have longer speeches. If they're not good public speakers or don't have enough money, they might not persuade people to vote for them. If they are elected, they are answerable to the voters. They don't have a performance review, except at the end of their term if they choose to become reelected. They don't have to follow a job description because they're only answerable to the voters at the end of their term. They can't be fired for a bad job unless they are recalled by the voters. I think of elected officials as politicians, and I think of hired officials as professionals who are qualified to fulfill the requirements of a job. I urge you to support hiring professional people to run our county government. We elect county commissioners to create policies and participate on boards and commissions. I think we should hire professionals to administer the departments that build our roads, enforce our codes, create our budgets, supervise our elections, and provide social services to our citizens. Thank you for having this public hearing.
Are there questions? Thank you.
I also have a statement from Laura Dubois that she asked me to read. Okay. If we have time, okay. It's very on the same topic. I am unable to attend the Charter Review public meeting on Monday, March 2nd, 2015 because I'm traveling. I wish to have my comments entered into this record. Regarding DCD as an elected position, I wish to express my opposition. The Director of Community Development is a position that requires extensive knowledge and experience. Everywhere else in this country, counties put great effort into seeking a pool of trained and experienced candidates. Some counties conduct nationwide searches to secure the best candidates. They conduct detailed interviews and reference checks to be sure they are able to hire the best qualified and suited person for the job. Voters are not able to review resumes and applications from a large pool of candidates. Why is Clallam County the only county in the nation to have an elected DCD? What problem was the previous Charter Review Commission trying to solve? I believe they have just created a problem for the voters and for the Clallam County Commissioners and the county staff. Please consider why we should continue this serious variance from all other county DCDs. Respectfully submitted, Laura Dubois, Sequim, Washington.
Thank you. And we'll see that, okay. And next speaker is Roy Larson. Roy, or looks like B-R-O-Y. Okay. Martha Ireland. And Martha, when you get up, you state your address, because I put your name in here, but I don't have your address.
Thank you, Norma. My name is Martha Ireland. I live at 20 Spath Road. That's a Sequim address out in the country. I have lived in this county about 27 years. I served on the Charter Review Commission, I think it was in '94. And it was such an interesting experience that in '95 I ran for county commissioner and served the term at that. I'm going to give you a little variety because I don't want to talk about any of the issues that have been discussed today. A lot of those are ground that has been plowed and replowed and plowed again. Yeah, I'm a farmer. But I would like to draw your attention to Article 4, Section 4.2, which deals in passing with the duties of various Clallam County elected officials, including the duties of the district court judge. I see this county facing a potential disaster for the county budget and for the poor people of this county in a future time, because a district judge can pretty much do whatever he or she wants. Right now, we happen to have a District Court 1 judge who has chosen to do the extra work to give people who come before his court who are not capable of paying in cash their fines other options for getting out from under that. Prior to this current system, when I was a county commissioner, we had to figure out how to fit the district court budget into the county budget. And I believe at that time it was running something like $250,000 each year that the taxpayers of this county had to underwrite. Probably be more now. On top of that, we had a situation whereby a person of limited means committed an infraction, went before the court, pled guilty, was found guilty, whatever, had a fine to pay. That person had no options if they didn't have the money. So they were either not held accountable at all, or they could not, very often they would lose their driver's license. Without a driver's license, they couldn't get to work unless they drove illegally, so you had serial violations. And when people, I remember particularly a mother called me. She had a daughter who was a young adult, had violation. The girl worked at a low-pay job. I was going to make this short, but I'm going to talk longer, sorry. The girl saved up her money and came into the courthouse wanting to pay off her fine and was told, no, it's gone to collection, and the only way you can pay it is to travel to Seattle, pay the fine there in cash, and then come back.
So Martha, do you have a recommendation for what you'd like?
I would like you to consider putting, say, a requirement in the charter, proposing a requirement in the charter that would require the judge, district court judges, to provide a choice of not less than 2 methods by which offenders can pay their fines. I'm not saying it has to be pay or appear, maybe there are better ways, but another option for paying their fines. I say that if we lose that option when we get a different district court judge, which will eventually happen, this county will have to pay the cost of district court, and the poor people of this county will have no options, and the nonprofit sector of this county will lose a huge resource in community service people. The agency I worked for, Serenity House, is one of those that benefits from community service people coming under this program. It is a huge contribution to Serenity House and a great many other nonprofits, and would be a tremendous loss.
Thank you. I'll open it up for questions from the elect. Okay.
I was just wondering, Martha, is this current judge apparently uses some judgment as to how she manages this? And he?
Yes.
And so that if you had another judge, that wouldn't possibly happen.
A judge can drop it at any time. In the last election, the opponent who ran trying to unseat the incumbent stated up front that the day she took office, that program would be gone and it would be back to strictly sending out for collection. That was a cornerstone of her campaign.
So what you would like to see is sort of locking this into some procedure whereby it's acceptable to use people for this community service as a normal way of doing business, no matter who the judge is, right?
Exactly. Whoever the judge is, the person would run for judge knowing that part of his or her responsibility was going to be to operate a program that would give the community service in some format.
Ron?
Well, I certainly appreciate that position, but I thought that the Charter Review Commission didn't have jurisdiction or power to touch much with the judiciary.
I don't know how much there is, but I would like to see you look at that.
I think it is a question that's worthy of discussion. So there is a question as to how much you can have the courts be directed to do. We can raise the issue. Okay, any other questions? Sue?
Martha, would you be willing to maybe put together a written proposal as far as an amendment, a proposed amendment, briefly for our consideration and research?
I had notes that I thought I was going to use, but what I said isn't exactly what's on here. But I'll give this to Trish, and I will see if I can. So you know how much else I have to. I'm busy writing, but I do think that it is something that that once that changes and you have a judge that doesn't feel any direction to do that, you're going to have a serious problem in this county on several levels. People are going to be ill-served.
So we've used up our commission 3 minutes, so we'll let you have the last question. Go ahead.
Well, obviously, under homeless, you think it fits under 4.2, and you've been a charter review commissioner yourself, so you obviously think it does.
Well, I know, Glenn, that that's the section of the charter where it answers that. And all honesty, last night between 11 and 12 o'clock, when I should have been going to bed, I looked in the charter and I said, where is this dealt with? Because I know this is an issue that needs to be addressed. And today, when I happened to mention to my boss at Serenity House that I was going to come and testify tonight on my own time about this, and she became aware, she's not a political person, became aware that community service program is in jeopardy. She became very concerned, both from the standpoint of the good of the agencies that benefit from it and also the good of the clients who benefit so strongly from it. And it is a program that has been unfairly and erroneously maligned repeatedly. I would like to see it protected.
Okay. So I'm going to have us see if there are other people who testify, and then we can come back to revisit any of these. Others who would like to testify but didn't get your name on the list, okay?
My name is Pat Johansson, and I just want to respond. 692 Owlsnest Road in Sequim. I would like to just respond to some of the comments that have been made tonight. First, for your concern, the PDC regulates the kind of publications, and I have run 2 initiatives in the city of Sequim. And the important I realize, but that rather than amending the charter, if there is a suspected piece of literature that's out there, forward it to the PDC. They will evaluate it. When I do this kind of thing personally, I always send it to the PDC first if you're concerned. So what I'm suggesting is let's not clutter the charter with this because the regulations are still in place. That's probably the most important thing. But I'm also concerned as a citizen that observes the county function, or lack of it, at times. It just seems to me, I've lived in 5 states across this country, from Virginia to South Carolina to Tennessee to California to Washington, and I have never seen a county government structure that has this arrangement of elected officials subject to other elected officials, subject to an appointed county administrator for budgets and other personnel things. It seems like it's a real mix. And at some point in time, I realize that's not the role of the charter Review Commission, but somebody at somewhere, and perhaps you could make this suggestion to our county officials, to do a management study of this arrangement, because frankly, if there's ever any contest between Ebony and Celinda can talk about it, others can talk about it, if there's contention among us, there is no real appropriate way to fix it. And I think that we really do seriously need a management study. Whether the auditor and the assessor and the DCD and the treasurer should be elected or appointed, I don't know. But I do know that it creates issues that are really, really complicated and probably in the long run, not in the best interest of our county.
Any other comments? Oops, the beep just went. Okay, questions? So have you, in all the places you live, have you looked where things like assessors and auditors and treasurers are appointed rather than elected?
By and large, some are, some aren't. Typically, the county board of supervisors is more powerful is probably not the right word, but more all-encompassing. And I don't know what the right answer is. I don't see a lot of reason for our auditor to be an elected person, but I don't know whether that's the tradition in the state of Washington or whether it's required by the state constitution. I don't know that, but I do think all we have to do, and I'm sure our commissioner would agree, and our former commissioner, that it creates difficulties in terms of legal responsibilities and administrative oversight. And I mean, I would, from Celinda's point of view, I don't know how she can get her job done. I really don't. It just doesn't make any sense. So that's a big deal, and it probably costs money, but this county spends a lot of money on a lot of stuff, so a $100,000 management study probably be well worth the money.
Any questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who didn't get a chance to sign up but would like to speak?
Bob Ford, I live in Sequim. I'd like to speak in favor.
Your address is?
67 Nicky Lane.
Thank you.
P.O. Box 3457.
This one will do.
We don't get mail at Nicky Lane. I'd like to speak in favor of an elected DCD. And I'd like to refer to the history behind that. Bob Martin was the last appointed director. When the people voted to have it an elected position, Mr. Martin chose to run for election. He had been serving in that capacity for a number of years, highly educated. He has more degrees than a thermometer. He is a very well qualified individual for that job. He was defeated in the election. So the voters had the choice to elect the man who had been appointed or to choose someone else. They chose someone else. The current director is a well-reputed architect, and in my view, probably well qualified for the job. Somebody said that elections aren't cheap. That's probably true, but freedom isn't free. It costs a great deal of money to run a free society, and in a free society, because you're here tonight to listen to the people have a voice by electing that community development director. After all, it is a community made up of people. The county has less than 80,000 residents across the entire county, and it's a big county. And so, in order to efficiently run that department, which I think is well run and well managed and has been since the elected process had taken place, there is no reason to go back. History need not repeat what it's already done. So the 8 people that I listened to advance the notion of going back to an appointed position circumvents the idea of the people having a voice in their own government. The appointing process, all we need to do is look at Washington and see the disaster that appointments do, very political. If you think electing a DCD director is a political process, what do you see what the appointing thing does? It's far more political. So I would urge this commission, and I want to thank you for your effort and your work, I would urge this commission to understand it's already been put, as Mr. Bell pointed out, it's already been put on the ballot a number of times, and the people have chosen to have it elected. And for one last comment, and I'll shut up. The Department of Ecology has an appointed head. The Department of Ecology has a huge impact on the lives of the citizen in the entire state of Washington. The Department of Ecology at a state level answers to one individual, the governor. That position, in my view, ought to be an elected position. The people ought to have something to say about that. It is not that way right now, and it probably won't be. I use it simply as an example to show the fallacy of the benefit of an appointed position. It doesn't work, it's very political, and it is super suspect to political favor. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question, Mr. Schwartz? Anyone else in the audience who didn't get their name on the list but would like to speak?
Stephanie Nola, 2345 East 3rd Avenue in Port Angeles. It's so refreshing to see that this community has so many different voices and different thoughts. And who's to say who's right or wrong? We all have opinions, right? So regarding the DCD, it's very simple to me. Why would you want to have a person that you can't recall? It's an important thing to me. You may like the effort of the county commissioners that you elected, but how do you know that that person will appoint a competent person? Questions. It helps to prevent cronyism by electing them. You may have the option to set the standards for the position, I'm not sure about that, but even the presidency of the United States doesn't have a set of standards to meet to run for the office other than age and a few other things. The voters decide if the person's qualified. Do you trust the voters? They voted for you. I would think you trusted the voters. I trust the voters. So, voters can get rid of ineffective DCD directors and commissioners.
Any questions? Thank you. Anyone else in the audience that has not signed up or would like to speak? So we'll go back to the name that we missed, and that's B-R-O-Y Larson. Person here? Or not? Okay. So for the last call, for anyone who would like to speak? Hearing none, we will then close the public hearing. Thank you all for your comments. And the only thing we have on our agenda is for the good of the order. So Linda, would you like to explain what your handout is?
What I put on the table is my treasurer's 2015 timber and tax report. It has a lot of numbers in there, revenue numbers about the timber revenues of this county to the table county. I will be emailing it out to the commission tomorrow.
Is that get posted on the county website?
I will be posting it tomorrow on the county website under the treasurer's page. It should be there sometime later tomorrow.
Thank you.
And for the information for the audience, our next meeting of the charter will be March 11th in Port Angeles at the Board of Commissioners, and one after that is March 16th. On both of those meetings, we plan to hear from elected county officials for half of the meeting, and the other half will be discussing the next steps. And we will be having a substantive discussion at our next meeting about assignments to subcommittees and rules of the commission in serving on those subcommittees. So, and remember that you can send comments to us. Go on to the website, Clallam County website. On the left, there's a list of things, and just click on Clallam County Charter Review, and it will pop up, and you can send your comments in a little box. Somebody wanted to know why we didn't have a direct email address, and it's because the IT department at the county told us you don't want to have a email address on there because you'll get full of spam. So that's why they set it up the way they have. And thank you again, all of you, for coming. Does anybody, before we adjourn, have anything else for the good of the order? Okay. Then I declare us adjourned.